Alexander Washburn pointed over his subordinate's shoulder at the storm of horsemen charging down the rain-soaked hillside towards them. "4th Company of the line! Reform! Square formation! On the double! Quick!" Alex fell back as the regiment formed up into a box, the flag-bearer, lieutenant, and drummer beside him in the center and protected on all sides by the rest of the company. Nearby, he could hear similar commands being called out as the Imperial cuirassiers drew ever closer. "Brace for cavalry charge! Bayonets!" In perfect order, his company affixed their bayonets, the first rank bracing their rifles against the ground for use as makeshift pikes. Suddenly before them, a pair of howitzer shells ripped through the lines, sending many of his men to the ground as the screams of the dying screeched through the air. With that distraction, however, the French punched through the gaping hole. "Fire!" Alex called, knowing it was already too late. The second rank fired over the heads of their comrades as the horsemen tore into their lines, sabers flashing down into red-coated men. Then the 4th Company's formation collapsed. The lieutenant to his right went down, slashed from shoulder to navel. An armored cuirassiers reared his war horse and charged the flag-bearer. Alex took aim and fired his flintlock, but the oncoming animal crashed into them regardless. May 1814, Lennox House, London. Alex awoke, panting and gasping for air. Instantly upon him as he returned to reality were the loud, busy noises of the city. "God, I hate London." Muttering, he ran a hand across a sweat-soaked face. It's a truth universally acknowledged that a man in the London season is in want of a wife. However, little knew the feelings or views of such a man on his first entering London. This truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered the rightful property of someone or other of their daughters, that they will gladly remind him of his true intentions and desires. Thus the London air buzzed with excitement on this dawn. In a matter of weeks, London shops and cafes would be bursting at the seams, modistes being called from home to home, and the opera and theatre diligently practicing, eagerly awaiting its opening nights. Yet Alexander Washburn hated the night, for it was in the night that he dreamt about his time in Spain and Portugal. He could still hear the screams of agony and smell the blood soaking into worn earth. Every time he closed his eyes, he could see the mangled and detached limbs of the fallen. He remembered the look on the faces of dead men whose mouths still hung open in silent screams, and whose eyes had never closed, but still registered the shock and brief pain of being wounded before falling to the earth to die. It was these nights that he would come to one of the vacant rooms with naught but the bottle, trying to regain some semblance of normalcy. This bedroom was hardly ever used, and it was far enough away from the other occupants that any noise he may have been induced to make would be quelled by the distance. Briefly, he closed his eyes, willing the sounds of merriment to vacate his mind, so his sleep may still return. Yet in that silence, the cannon fire was deafening, and the screams of agony and terror almost drowned them out. He remembered the horse crashing into him, and as he struggled to get up, slipping on a combination of mud and blood, he had been covered in blood, and yet given his red uniform, you would have never known it but for the darker outlines staining the coat. It was the snapping of a twig which caused him to whirl around in concealed terror. "Get away from me!" he shouted into the darkness of a vacant room. "Get away from me!" Sleep was not to come to him. The alcohol consumed earlier may have numbed his body, but images of battle and destruction kept him tossing and turning. It would appear that he was to never have peace, even with the aid of alcohol. Rising from the bed, he strode to the nightstand and grabbed the whiskey. Uncorking the bottle, he took a quick swallow before setting it down again. This was the terror of man's heart,